Welcome to STEM Unplugged, a monthly podcast designed to help you learn about STEM initiatives and to help advance STEM awareness. Now, here's your host, Kelly Green.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm so excited. This is Kelly Green, the Chief Operations Officer of SciTech Institute, a collaborative nonprofit organization making STEM connections in Arizona and beyond. In this episode of STEM Unplugged, we will be keeping cool with STEM over the summer. Our guests are John Adams, Deputy Director of Biosphere 2, Cinda Sutton and Stephanie Bolin, Park Rangers at Karchner Caverns State Park, and Vanessa King, Director of Education at Tucson Children's Museum. On the call tonight, we also have CSO of the Year, Chief Science Officer Nikhil, and we're really excited to have all of you joining us for STEM Unplugged in studio and on Zoom. We really want to talk about ways to keep cool with STEM. So Chief Science Officer Nikhil, could you share a little bit about what's your role in your community, at your school, and what's one way you've been keeping cool this summer?
Hey everyone, my name is CSO Nikhil. I'm a fourth year Chief Science Officer at North High School. So that basically means I'm a STEM ambassador for the STEM initiative. I'm able to bring whatever I like, whatever I think is cool from meetings with STEM professionals and take it to my school, tell the principal, talk to my teachers, tell them what I think as a student's point of view is a great way to engage with other students. One way we've been keeping cool is actually going to clean up the Cesar Chavez Park. We were able to plant 15 new trees and get 7 new bags of trash as a way to get involved in the community.
That's exciting. And it's really neat because we have so many STEM professionals on tonight for you to interact with. We actually want to talk about the owned by the University of Arizona is Biosphere 2 in Oracle, Arizona. It's a major regional attraction and serves as a laboratory for controlled scientific studies, an arena for scientific discovery and discussion, and a far-reaching public education center. So, John, let's start with quick highlights of what's going on at Biosphere 2. Share a little bit with our listeners about your role and current opportunities.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, Biosphere 2 has been part of the Southern Arizona landscape now for 30 years. And I think most of us learned about Biosphere 2 early on as this place where 8 people were going to be sealed inside. Today, the operation is very different from how it was originally intended to be used. Those people were going to be isolated and were isolated inside. They spent 2 years inside. But more recently, what we've done is we've repurposed it. As we know, the climate is changing around us and it impacts the resources that you and I are so dependent on. But we don't quite know how to sort of predict what's going to happen and what those impacts are going to be until they've actually happened. Biosphere 2 is essentially a time machine. So within Biosphere 2, we have a tropical rainforest, we have an ocean system, we have a marsh, we have a savanna, a thorn scrub, we have a coastal fog desert. We have a space that we repurposed into what we call today the landscape.
Oh no, I think he froze. So when he comes back, Nikhil, I'm curious, would you ever be locked inside like the Biosphere 2? They had 8 people that lived inside for 2 years with no contact really to the outside world. Would you ever do that?
Yeah, I've been actually a huge fan of the Biosphere. I saw like a video or like a movie of it a while back, and I heard about the whole failure thing, but I think that it's just so cool. It's a cool idea how you're just closed in, and I really like I don't know if you've seen it, but there's like this air thing, how they regulate the air so it doesn't just explode. And I just the physics, the just the stuff that goes behind it is just crazy. I would love to be in there.
I'm so excited you say that because we should probably take a CSO field trip. I actually got to go inside and experience that whole like suction air, what do they call it, compartment that does that. I actually looked at the apartments where the inhabitants lived and looked at like their kitchen. It was super cool. It would blow your mind. So we definitely need to get down there. So a couple more guests. Karchner Caverns is the 25th state park in Arizona, which was open to the public in 1999. It's a world famous cave for families to come and explore. Visitors have an opportunity to take a guided tour in the Rotunda throne room all year, or the big room in October to May. And each room is littered with brilliant colors and pristine calcite formations from ceiling to the floor that visitors come and discover and enjoy. So here in studio tonight, we have Cinda and Stephanie who drove up to hang out with us because they love podcasts. We want to know, can you share with our listeners more about Karchner Caverns State Park?
Yeah, so it's kind of an unusual cave. Most people when they think cave, they think cold, they need a jacket. The environment there is actually warm and humid. We say it's about 71, 72 degrees, 99 to 98% humidity.
Ew.
Most from Arizona do say that. It's just a unique experience getting underground, definitely in Arizona, going to from dry desert to humid, moist air underground. It's just a unique experience to come out and take a tour.
And on some days, the humidity is almost welcome on certain days, and the temperature isn't too bad. Sometimes when it gets really hot, I tell folks that it is actually nicer inside than it is outside.
It is. And the cool thing is, in Arizona, you don't think about water, but water plays such an important role on how it was developed and that it's currently still developing because the water pockets found in the limestone. So it's a good way to bring in water based on Arizona.
I think it's really neat that you're representing the state park as rangers too, right? So what does the Ranger 2 mean? Can you explain that to me? I was looking at your form like, okay, Park Ranger 2. So there must be levels.
So they're seasonals, and they're called Park Ranger Specialists. And we do have the Park Ranger 2s, which is what Stephanie and I are. And it's just a permanent ranger. So we're full time. We get the benefits, and then we get to be at that park the full year is what it means. And so it's a nice experience, but you get a lot more, you have more tasks to deal with. So like me, I'm not just a park ranger too, but I'm also a certified interpreter trainer, which is meaning for the agency wise for state parks, me and one other ranger are, we go out and we actually train the other park rangers to be certified interpreter guides. So be able to present programs in a specific manner.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
We're so blessed that you came on. I'm excited we're friends. Yay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we also have Children Museum Tucson as a nonprofit educational organization in Tucson, Arizona that provides fun, play-based, interactive, hands-on learning experiences for children and their families through in-person exhibits and programs, as well as now virtual programs and outreach. So Vanessa, we are so excited because the Tucson Children's Museum has been a long-standing partner of the Arizona SciTech Festival. What are some of the ways that guests can keep cool at the museum this summer?
Well, we always joke that the summer is one of our favorite times of year because, of course, kids are out of school and ready to do stuff. And so one way that people keep cool is come and enjoy our 13 exhibits that are air conditioned.
You keep it cool, 72, no humidity, unlike the cave.
Exactly. But we're currently running a lot of our in-person programs again, which was something we've missed the last year. So we've been inviting our community back into our museum space, which has been updated. Every single one of our exhibits has at least one new thing in it. And it's been really fun to finally get to share that with actual children and have them play and engage in those exhibits. As kind of that play-based hands-on institution, we really think that it's important for kids to be able to get that hands-on play, to be able to experiment and discover and try things out. I like to think of it as failing in fun ways, because you can't necessarily learn something until you try all the other ways to do it. Part of my job is also working with volunteers. And when I give them the first tour, I always tell them, in the exhibits, there's no right way to play. There are safer ways. There are ways that the grown-ups think about, but kids always find a bunch of other ones. And so it's really fun to be able to see that happening in our exhibit space again.
That is exciting. We actually toured the Arizona Science Center today. So we're planning for our Arizona STEM Ecosystem Summit, which will be Wednesday, September 29th. And you're all invited, by the way. So there were so many people inside and so excited, and they were just interacting and excited, I think, to be around other human beings. Even myself, like, it was a little overwhelming because there were a lot of people, but it was also exciting to be around watching that joy of, I see it in your logo in the back, joy of learning, joy of discovery, and joy of play. There's something really important about that hands-on learning. So again, thank you all for being here, because at SciTech Institute, we're always excited to get new individuals connected especially that might not have ever, maybe Vanessa, you might not have known John or the ladies from Kartchner Caverns. Like maybe you wouldn't have bumped into each other. So it's really exciting for SciTech to connect the people and then the opportunities. So having all of you on the call showcases Arizona and the opportunities to explore STEM. So let's go back to discussing that value of interactive play-based learning. As we discussed, many families are ready to unplug and experience hands-on STEM. But are we ready and is it safe? Is a question that is plaguing quite a bit of our citizens in Arizona still. As the pandemic continues to make an impact on ways individuals engage, what's really different? I would say, let's start with Kartchner Caverns. What's different today versus how it was run before?
So, being the old new ranger, I like to call myself there, I can tell you there's definitely a change. We went down. We used to have lots of tours during the day, running about every 20 minutes. And currently, we only run 10 tours a day. We limit the amount of people up to 20 people per tour that goes through the cave. We also do rail cleaning quite often now, using a hydrogen peroxide based cleaner just because it's safer for the cave environment for
Oh.
that. We also do limit the amount of time, or like kind of the distancing when we do our tours. Now we've had to kind of change that a bit on trying to make sure that we can get people through areas that it might be a little tight, a little harder to social distance. So we try not to stop in certain spots. We try to have changed up our tours a little bit just because of that to make it safer for our visitors.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
And for you as rangers too, right? Keeping you safe. What about at Biosphere 2, John? Do you have some new updates and things going on with you guys? Oh, you're still muted. Sorry.
Yeah, we do have some updates. So originally Biosphere 2, people would go through similar to Karstner Caverns in large tour groups. And, we had to rethink the way in which people were going to experience this amazing facility and provide social distancing. So what we ended up doing is we developed an app so people can self-pace, self-guide. It allows people to socially distance. We created some new entrances and exits, one in the desert, one in the rainforest. So it helps to facilitate ease of access, one-way traffic throughout the facility, but still gives people, I think, a very comprehensive experience. So we're really excited to have people, like everybody is, back on site. It's great to see people. And, I will say for our patrons and our audience, people have been really good about following the guidelines that we put forward. So, my hat's off to everyone because we're all just looking to be able to get back to some sense of normalcy.
Yeah, that overall respect for safety, understanding what your facility is providing, and also other patrons. I think that's, commendable to be noted to all of the people that are listening. Like, we want you to come. We want you to respect the rules so that everybody can keep coming. So that's great. What about at the museum, Vanessa?
One of the big things that we've been doing is sort of limiting that capacity, understanding that usually summer is our busiest time, but keeping those numbers lower just so that it's not super packed and people are able to keep distance, and that so folks are able to feel more comfortable. We've also found we've updated our outdoor space too. And initially we thought people probably aren't going to want to be outside in Tucson summers. In fact, they do want to be outside, and that's been really fun too. We have a new bubble garden, and it's awesome to see children and their grown-ups making enormous bubbles. That has been a fun project for our director of exhibits, who did his own science experiments to figure out how to make the perfect bubbles. And so we're seeing a lot of outdoor activities as well, and we're excited to be able to continue doing that as the weather cools going into fall too.
So I want to kind of go around the room again of what is your favorite part about your location? I don't know if that's, allowed to be shared, especially in the roles that each of you play. But John, is there a specific part? Okay, so I'm brand new to Arizona and have to come to the Biosphere too. Actually, Nikhil wants to come down and check it out. He's watched the videos on YouTube. He wants to come explore. What do you think is the one thing you have to experience while you're at the Biosphere 2?
Well, the great thing about coming to Biosphere 2 is you can experience it all. So that's one caveat I said. But my favorite location inside Biosphere 2, just because it's so starkly different than the surrounding landscape, is, we have a fully established tropical rainforest inside. So you walk into there and you think that you're in the jungle of a South American location. It's just incredible, and it's so contrasting, like I said, to that surrounding environment where you have lush, large leafed plants. The humidity, like Karster Caverns, is significantly elevated. So that's my favorite location. But I work with a colleague of mine, Katie Morgan, and she's our marine systems manager, and she would debate that heavily because the ocean system for her and having a literal beach here in southern Arizona is unique too. So
Yeah, when I visited, Nikhil was mentioning the air intake system, and I was really excited to tell him I've actually stood in there when I came down to visit, and it's pretty powerful to watch how you regulate everything within Biosphere 2. What about you, Vanessa? I mean, I know you just talked about the bubbles, but are there any other specific exhibits that are just your favorite?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I will say I moved all the way from the Marshall Islands to work here.
Oh
So
my God.
I am in love with the museum. One of my very favorite spots is the maker space. To me, I love being able to watch children explore the tools. I love getting to show kids, this is how you use a saw, this is how you get to use a hammer, this is how you use a leather punch. And then to be able to see their creativity, where they're not just replicating things, but pulling things out of their incredible minds and putting them to, into reality. So that's absolutely my favorite spot, both because I like to be able to play and make things and tinker, but also because I really like to watch how children and how they work with their grown-ups to be able to make those things.
I think that's fun to watch. I was previously a teacher, and watching the adults get just as excited as the students is always a great thing to enjoy. What about you, ladies?
So I think my favorite formation that we have within the cave is an area called the Big Wall, because you go through this not exactly small passageway, it's just like a little hallway. You go through this hallway, there's some cave bacon on the ceiling, you're excited about that.
Whoa, what's cave bacon?
Cave bacon is a drapery formation, like a curtain or a ribbon that has 3 or more colors to it. And it looks like bacon. I always tell my tours that it doesn't taste like bacon, so try not to eat it, but it does look like bacon. And then so they're excited about the bacon, and then they round the corner, and it's just, I've been told it's described like a waterfall or like an organ, just with all kinds of stalactites coming off of it and stalagmites growing up, and different types of stalactites and stalagmites. And you can just see all different kinds of formations in it. And it's just this big wall of just flowstone, just like a big frozen waterfall almost.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Claire's sitting over here, who organized the STEM Unplugged guests. So thank you. We're all kind of nodding like, yeah, we're definitely going to have to take some field trips. So we'll be down to Tucson, I think, in a couple of weeks. And then we'll head out to John and Oracle. And then we'll head over 9 miles south of Benson, right? All right. What about you? What's your favorite?
Oh, it is so hard to decide, honestly. But I think my favorite is when you go into the rotunda room and you're bringing your guests. And honestly, it's my guests. That's my biggest favorite part, is the guest. Some of them never been in the cave. And when you get into the first area, to which we kindly nicknamed an overlook so we could talk about it, it's this overlook, and down below it, before the lights come on, it's just dark down there. And it's exciting to get their idea of what do they think it is. And then we go down there, and it's actually a mud flat down there. And it has the evidence of the original trails of the 2 discoverers.
Oh, wow.
So it's really a great way, and it gives me pride to show kind of what Gary and Randy, the 2 discoverers, did just to come into the cave. You know, they veered around broken formations. They knew what they were doing to try to protect the cave. And I really like bringing that in and talking about the mud itself, and that, you know, that's where humidity is coming from in the cave. And so it's amazing how something so natural to us above, like mud, is also so interesting down below. And that's kind of my favorite portion of it.
So hearing all of those descriptions, Nikhil, and we get to decide, I know you already have kind of leaning toward Biosphere 2, but what do you hear as, gosh, are you going to be a junior this year? You're as a junior headed into high school. Like what do you see for sharing these opportunities with not only your peers, but even your friends? What kind of struck you hearing all of them describe their favorite spots?
I think, you know, as a teenager, bacon sounds kind of cool. So But
Is that just because it's food in general?
yeah,
Most teenagers eat quite a bit.
yeah. But I've been to the Karcher Caverns before, and I remember being told not to touch the walls, and I wanted to touch the walls a lot. Um, but
Wait,
yeah,
let's ask why. Why, park ranger, are we not allowed to touch the wall?
Ah, good question. You want to take it, Stephanie?
Sure. Yeah, our formations are need water to grow, and we have oils and bacteria on our skin. And if you've ever put a hand on a mirror or on glass and it's left behind residue, oil and water don't mix, and so you could potentially stop those formations from growing. And also, with our cave being so humid, it's just the perfect breeding ground for all kinds of fuzzy science experiments that we don't want growing within the cave. We love science experiments outside of the cave.
And it's kind of cool because there's areas that we can show where bats hang, and we can kind of bring it in because bats are mammals, and we can talk about, do you want to look at a cave like this where they've touched, it's black in color, there's no colors to it anymore, the formations aren't growing, or do you want to see what you're seeing? So it's kind
That's
of
a
a neat
good
way
point.
to bring it in.
So Nikhil, no touching the wall. All right. What else did you hear that you would be interested to share with your peers?
Of course, the makerspace. We all, as kids, we love to just play around with stuff. So I think the makerspace is just everyone will like it. It's not just a specific type of thing for certain passions. And then lastly, the biosphere. I think the rainforest is very cool. You have to tell your coworker that I can't swim, so I'm a little biased to the rainforest. But yeah, the ocean. It's cool, but it's scary.
Well, the funny part is there's a boat, but it's the idea of, I mean, have you been to the real ocean, Nikhil? Have you been out to the coast?
Yeah, but
Not as
just never
scary. It's
yeah.
much calmer at the point too. But John, what would you say to that?
Well, no, I would. The really cool thing is that you don't have to swim. You can still see it and sort of grasp the science that we're doing. But the amazing thing about Biosphere 2 is we control the weather inside. So right now we've got a really violent thunderstorm that's hitting, but inside we can control those conditions. And from a science perspective, that's what's so cool is that just like the makerspace, you can create your science experiment in so many different ways inside Biosphere to look at how these systems are going to respond. You can change the temperature. You can tell it it's going to rain or it's not going to rain for 70 days. And that's what's really amazing. You can do the same thing in the ocean. You can change the temperature or change the water chemistry. So I think, whether you're a newly budding scientist or one that's been around for a while, it's truly amazing to have a tool like this. And it's located right here in our backyard. And you can visit it. That's what's really amazing.
Yeah, I think the best way it was described to me is that it's the largest science experiment on Earth. And noting that you don't want science experiments in the cave, but they're exciting for Nikhil, like to kind of work on that chemistry. That's happening in Biosphere 2. I know you guys. And when I visited, there was a very large soil experiment with water. What exactly was going on in that section?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've obviously changed the look of Biosphere, not exteriorly, but the inside portion from what it was originally designed and conceived to do. And that space you're referring to, we call LEO, the Landscape Evolution Observatory. This is where the former agricultural space was for those 8 people who were sealed inside Biosphere 2 and they grew their crops. But today, hydrologists would tell you one of the most compelling questions we have is the fate of water in semi-arid environments. So it rains in the mountains. How much water ends up downstream for you and I to use, and what impacts the quality of that? I mean, you all probably see that in the cave, just how those dynamics change from year to year. And sometimes you can explain it and other times you can't. Hydrologists will tell you, once that water goes below the surface, it is very much a big mystery still. And LEO is designed to help us better understand it. They created these structures to represent sort of the early stages of a watershed. They embedded over 1,800 sensors and samplers. They started out with a volcanic material. So geologically, this is relatively young, and they can actually watch it change and evolve. But more importantly, not how water runs off of it. How does water run through it? And how does it change as you change those conditions? So the idea is can we better inform folks like, those that are running Karshner Caverns as those mountains around them, how they change, whether it's development or natural, how it may impact the amount of water that gets into the cave or doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It obviously water is a huge topic here in Arizona, anything you guys wanted to add about, the impact that it does? You mentioned it's how it grows and how things happen in the cave.
Yeah, and it's always been a topic there at the park about the water, because that is the main point of the cave, is that water coming in. And we try to do stuff ourselves there at the park. Like we have a rainwater harvesting tank now that helps feed our landscaping. But there has been drip studies done. I think they started back in about 2011. I haven't heard the conclusion based on it, but to determine, like, from a storm that comes in a day, how long does it take to get into the cave system, and how much is that really impacting the cave? So there's still studies like that going on, so we can get a better understanding of that process.
Yeah, that whole mystery, right, John, in between. So Vanessa, what about water at, the museum? Are there any specific exhibits that are kind of exploring water in Arizona, or even, I've seen different things where students pour water in and they watch it go through different interactive um like gears or shifts or anything like that. But do you guys do any on-site water experiments, or even travel to the Tucson classrooms and kind of engage with schools?
We do. So we, due to COVID, had stopped doing in-person field trips, but we transitioned to doing virtual outreach. And so one of the outreach that we do is the wonders of water. And so
Perfect.
our education specialist talks all about the wonders of water to children in kind of the early grades, because here in Arizona, of course, the discussions around water is vital. And that was something for me, not being from Southern Arizona, that I just didn't understand in the same way. And so it's exciting to be able to do those sorts of experiments with the children in the hands, and being able to do those hands-on things, even at a distance when it is virtual.
Yeah. And then Nikhil, when you were planting the trees, right, did you have an opportunity to work with a specific STEM professional that was talking about how to maintain the park? Or I know, did you have to dig the holes too? Like what did you have to do?
Yeah, we had to dig the holes, and there was a specific way we had to do it. They were telling us to make sure that there's a hole here so that they could put the piping for the waters. And yeah, we didn't really have like a very in-depth way of like a STEM professional telling us, but yeah, the water was definitely something we had to worry about and make sure that we did it right so the water can help the trees.
That's excellent. So let's talk a little bit about, those specific learning opportunities when families or guests or, just individuals want to come to your location. Back to what programs do you offer? Just kind of hit the highlights of, if I were a parent and I wanted to come visit, or if I was a teacher, how could I get engaged? Or if I'm just, 25-year-old that wants to take a, day trip, what kind of engagements or programs do you have right now at Biosphere 2? John, any specifics going on?
We do. So the big part now for learning is the app. So you can download it through Google Play or the Apple App Store. You don't have to be on site, so you can learn a lot about Biosphere 2 by just downloading that app and going through it. But when you come, you actually get an opportunity to traverse through the biome. So similar to what they do in Karstner Caverns or the Children's Museum with the hands-on activities, you get to immerse yourself inside of the physical space. So you're in and you enter into the coastal fog desert, and you can see through hydrologic or water presence or absence how those systems change, because that's how we change the dynamics or the look of these different systems, and how we can have them inside is there simple differences in the amount of water that's given in a given area. So the coastal fog desert receives significantly less water. It's a more drier looking climate. And then when you get to the tropical rainforest, it's starkly different. So I think, those types of lessons, if you're a parent, can talk about and look at plant adaptation. So desert plants, you see, they don't have to worry about gathering light. They have to worry about losing water. So that's why we have really small leaves on them. Rainforest, you're worrying about gathering light. You're not too much worried about losing water. So that's why the leaves are typically really large and comparatively. So, some of these subtleties are, I think, valuable as people come in. If you're a teacher, the great thing is we do some virtual field trips. So like the Children's Museum, we had to shift gears and think of new ways. I think that's still going to be really popular with a lot of of folks, especially as we move into the coming years, depending on whether you can or can't do field trips. And then, if you're a teacher and want to come out to Biosphere 2, we've had teachers who come out and do their own virtual recordings and record lessons for their kids back in the classroom. We've also had teachers who will work with us, develop some lesson plans specifically around what they're teaching, and then they'll bring their class out and walk them through Biosphere 2, illustrating those particular topics that they're looking to highlight. So you can really approach it in any direction that you would like to.
Oh my goodness, Nikhil, that sounds like definitely the way we get you down there is we say, come on, Nikhil, you need to go make a lesson video for every single biome. I think you just found a way in. All right. Sydney, Stephanie, and what's going on at any specific outreach targets or?
So we are currently trying to revamp our school groups. So we actually do have curriculum out there for teachers. And we're trying to draw in teachers as much as possible so we can educate the kids on programs. The cool thing about the curriculum is it's actually out there for families that they want to use.
Nice.
And so one of the cool activities that's in there is building a cave out of sugar cubes. To kind of teach them the aspect of the water coming in, dissolving away at the sugar to make that pocket in the cave, which is really neat to bring in. And so we're trying to get a group together to help us revamp because that was built back in 97. And so I'm the new environmental education coordinator there at the park. And so and Stephanie's on the committee too, to try to revamp all of that in the curriculum. So we're trying to build a group to go through our curriculum and make it a little bit more conducive to today.
Oh my goodness. Amanda Rincon's in here with us tonight too. Educational outreach for SciTech Institute. We totally need to start a working group. What? That would be fun.
Yes,
And
we
bringing
need
in the
contact.
student voice. Okay, it's happening. Anything you wanted to add, Stephanie?
I think that we have lots of other things. You were asking about families, not and individuals. So
What if they don't want to go in the cave?
if they don't want to go in the cave, we have several hiking trails that they could do. We have a guide specifically for our Foothills Loop Trail that they can go around. It's an interpretive guide, so they can kind of follow along and
nice.
at different spots along the way. And that trail provides lots of very pretty views of the mountains surrounding the area, the dragoons, the whetstones. And so those are kind of things outside of the cave. And then if they've already been on our regular tour, we also have other tours as well that we offer.
Yeah. So with COVID, we had to shut down quite a bit of stuff that we used to do. But one of them that we now are offering again is the helmet and headlamp tour.
Well, that sounds fun.
It is. It's really neat. So we actually give you a helmet, we give you a headlamp. We do a completely different tour. A lot of times it depends on the guide and what they were going to tell you and what you're going to do. And so we take them in where that's the only light they see is what they give. So they get to explore and actually discover all these parts of the cave that on a tour we may not tell you about. Yeah, so it's really cool. And then the neater part is, and we do try to warn family of this, is we try to give you the experience of cave darkness. It's a kind of darkness that you'll never experience in your life unless you're inside of a cave. So we do have everybody sit down in a safe area. And we count it down, and then we have everybody turn off their headlamps, and the guys are like the last one to turn it off so they can get that experience of what bats go through the cave. So we kind of try to draw that in too so they can understand that process.
That sounds like a great experience.
What I love about the helmet and headlamp tour is it's very self-guided in a way. We're not telling you what to look at. You get to look at it and explore it for yourself.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then you can ask the guide about it.
Yeah.
What about wildlife? Do you have any specific wildlife in the area?
We sure do. Yeah. Personally, I am very interested in birds. And so we have well over 150, almost 160 species of birds that can be found at the park. And then also within Gwindani Canyon, which is connected to our park. And so there's lots of opportunities for the birders out there. We also have a number of mammals that can be seen within the park. Gray fox, javelinas. We have a ringtail that has been spotted at our Discovery Center, actually just hanging out there. Coyotes and coati, as well as several other mammal species. And if you want to talk about any of the others.
Yeah, so we also have a variety of snakes too that come out.
All right, moving on.
Don't get scared. Don't get scared.
We'll go to Vanessa.
Which is really neat though, because we do relocate if they're in an area that is dangerous to our visitors. But we have them out there, so sometimes it's kind of neat to get to see something like that, as long as you're safe about it.
Yeah.
In the distance. We have tons of lizards. In fact, we found a skink in our what we call risers in our bathroom that we had to save. And what was cool about the skink is that it had a split tail. And so we were starting to look at it. It probably didn't lose it. Somebody was telling us that it didn't lose its tail properly, possibly.
Oh.
So, I mean, those are cool things that you get to find and see there. Plus the bats, of course, we're all about bats there. And so we do mist netting as well, that we catch the bats and we get to see what's there. The ones that we know the most of is the Myos velifers, which is the common cave bat. And we get to kind of see that and learn more about them.
The mist netting is really neat because it's a research project. So we have a researcher who comes in who is trained to catch the bats, and then can take different measurements on them, see how they're doing. I got to experience it a few weeks ago, and we caught a southwestern myotis, which the researcher said that she can count on one hand how many of these that she has caught before.
What
so
a
it was
cool
really, really neat
experience.
opportunity. Yeah.
Wow. Excellent. What about you, Vanessa?
A big thing for us is wanting to make sure that the whole family is involved in science learning. We sort of recognize that not every grown-up feels comfortable and confident around science.
I agree. Yeah.
And so sometimes that means that when their child is interested, they're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And so we have several programs that really encourage the grown-ups to learn alongside their children, so that they can also have excitement and can also feel confident in doing science things. So every Saturday and Sunday, we have Family Brain Boost. On Saturdays, that's bilingual in English and Spanish. On Sundays, it's in English. But we do a science experiment. We talk through what they're learning within that science experiment and allow grown-ups to kind of ask questions of the person facilitating that. We also do Generation Creation, which is a makerspace activity, and that's every single day. Again, working with children, a little bit more facilitated, because we also recognize when you're in a makerspace, some kids are like ready to go, and other kids don't necessarily feel as comfortable with that open-ended process.
Yeah,
They're used to having a right answer, right? And it's hard when it's like, there is no right answer. The process is what's important.
The adults feel that way too in the makerspace, that there's, what am I supposed to be making right now?
Absolutely. I think sometimes for the grown-ups, it's even harder. We sometimes will have kind of activity cards to sort of inspire children. And we've seen grown-ups who kind of hit roadblocks where they're like, oh, but you don't have that specific toilet paper tube, so we can't make this. And it's like, oh, but look at all the other supplies we have that you could use instead. And so in some ways, it's guiding grown-ups through that too, so that they also have that divergent thinking. And then one of my favorites is monthly, we have a makerspace special class that's facilitated, where we bring out the power tools, and they can make some stuff working in a much smaller, sort of intimate setting.
That is a lot of fun, because learning how to use like a circular saw, or a sawzall, or even a power drill, that's not always something that students get their hands on with shop class not being expected nowadays. I mean, I know it was important when I was a kid, and same with home ec, but that's really cool. It sounds like a fun place to get out of the heat, and it's a little cooler in Tucson right now. But it's still pretty warm. So Nikhil, as a chief science officer, what are some of the ways that you could connect with all of our professionals on the call tonight to kind of inspire action plans, or even share with the CSOs that are coming in that you're going to be training and congratulating? Are there anything that come to mind?
Yeah, and the whole time the presenters were talking, I was just thinking of action plan ideas. For example, Vanessa's makerspace, I think that's just a great way to get kids involved, and especially the kids' parents, because those are the people that's basically inspiring these kids to get involved, and having both of them learn together is just a great idea. I think the Biosphere 2, the virtual field trips and the normal field trips are just a great way for kids to get involved and actually see different kinds of the world without having to go to the different kinds of the world. I mean, places of the world.
Imagine telling Vertic and all of the CSOs in Kenya that they could go to the Biosphere 2 app I think that would be
Yeah,
really cool to share that out and, get other CSOs engaged. Excellent. What
exactly.
about the cavern?
The cavern, I think the helmet and headlamp one was just I want to try that. Can I go? I think just exploring that is a great thing to do for fun, but there's also a ton of STEM behind it, and you can always tie that together with an action plan and get students involved with that kind of passion of STEM.
I think there's a real experience, interpersonal experience too, of owning your space and being in the moment with that type of tour. Even, any of the locations, going to the biosphere too, and really thinking people lived in here, where it was a capsule and they were growing their own food, and, just those 8 individuals, like really being in that space and thinking about at that moment. And then of course the hands-on learning at the, museum is just so key. As a former educator, I think it's really powerful. So as we kind of round out the rest of this conversation, we really want to tell our listeners that we encourage you to get involved in the STEM community. Maybe you're an industry professional seeking ways to make a new impact. Maybe you're a student searching for a mentor or a community collaborator who's hoping to meet the right people to help make it happen. So, John, we want to really make sure they know how to get in touch with you. What is the best way to find out more about Biosphere 2 or even reach out to you?
So, we've got a great website. We are revamping it, so it will look different if you come back and visit it here in a couple of months. But so that our website is www.biosphere2.org. And that's a great place to start. All of our folks are on there listed. I'm included. So if you want to reach directly out to me, our Director of Education and Outreach is there. All of our researchers are listed as well, our phone numbers and our emails. And I will say our team prides themselves in picking up the phone when they can, and also returning emails. So, we're here and we get a lot of those calls. So that's, if you have a specific question, if you want to run an idea by, one of the things, we've done for the kids in the past, and we're hoping to get back to, is we actually have on-site accommodation. So, we've done, and we've had a number of Phoenix school groups who will, their 6th grade field trip finale is spending a couple days here at Biosphere 2 and exploring the facility and doing some things uniquely that they couldn't do in just sort of a half-day field trip. So, if you have those types of ideas, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer those questions. Or, if we need to hand you off to somebody, we've got some folks and some team members that can help, shape that visit for you if you've got an idea about how you might like to explore or use Biosphere 2.
Yeah, and you actually have quite a bit on site. So if you can get down there for 2 or 3 days, you still won't experience everything. So I think they're called casitas. Is that what you call
They
them?
are, yeah. We've set them aside. It's not a hotel. I don't want to lead anybody astray. But if you have a conference group or if you have a student group that you want to bring, that's how we've structured the use of those.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. So Claire's also here with me tonight. So we need to think about maybe a working group excursion or ecosystem. It's a great place. So if you can get down there, Nikhil, maybe a CSO leadership, excursion. We'll definitely, we've talked about it pre-COVID. So maybe now we'll be able to make it happen. Sydney and Stephanie, how can people, or Sidna and Stephanie, how could people reach out to you?
So one of the things they can reach out is to our website. Definitely the school groups, if they want to reach out to learn some of the curriculum as well as how to get a tour. That'll be geared based on what the teacher would like us to try to kind of bring it forth. Is they can go to our website, which is azstateparks.com/Karshner. And then, or they can just visit the agency's website altogether, which is azstateparks.com, and then find a certain park. Maybe ours is not exactly what the school's looking for or family's looking for. We have tons of other parks that can hit a lot of different areas of Arizona and learning. The other thing is if teachers or kids would like to reach out to talk to somebody about how to be a ranger, some of the stuff that we do, or anything, they can actually email me and I could pass them on to who in the agency would be beneficial for them, or I can help them. And my email is just ssutton. So that's ssutton@azstateparks.gov. And that's one of the ways. And then Stephanie.
Yeah, and if anybody would like to reach out to me, I can also help answer and forward things on. My email is BOLEYN. So that's sbolin at azstateparks.gov.
I think we definitely need to follow up with you as well, Stacey, about the birding opportunity. I know we have a hobbies month that we want to focus on. And then Vanessa, what about how can we find out more about the Tucson Children's Museum?
Like the others mentioned, our website is probably the best spot. That's where we have all of the information about our outreach, about the different weekly activities that we do. And that is www.childrensmuseumtucson.org. That also includes links and contact information for all of our staff. So if you're looking for me or someone else from the education team, including the person running our bilingual programming, our information is located on the website. And if you're interested in checking out our virtual content, that is on our Facebook page. And so all of our STEM experiments are up there, as well as mindfulness videos, story times, etc.
Oh, that's great. I think we'll definitely need to go reshare through the Arizona SciTech Festival page, Facebook, and SciTech Institute. Excellent. What about you, Nikhil? How could people find out more about the Chief Science Officer program?
So following the theme of the the website, you can go to chiefscienceofficers.org. But a great way that I'm involved with is the Perspective YouTube channel. The Perspective YouTube channel is something that was started by kids and is being led by kids. And we film episodes every month, and we put out an episode talking about highlights of what CSOs are doing all over the world. And it kind of just gives a perspective. Hint, hint, into what we do, and it's pretty fun, if I do say so myself. So you should check it out.
Humble brag, he is the producer of every show, so he's a very talented young man. So I wanted to tell everybody thank you so much for joining us for this episode of STEM Unplugged. Not only do we appreciate our guests, but we appreciate you, our listeners. If you would like more information, you can contact us at scitechinstitute.org. This is your host, Kelly Green, and we would be glad to discuss how you can get connected.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of STEM Unplugged. We encourage you to get involved in the STEM community and stay connected at scitechinstitute.org.